Yes, everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Chris Talks Football podcast. Today and yesterday and Friday was the opening weekend of the Premier League season, the new 2019-20 Premier League season, and I was really looking forward to the season. And what's happened is this weekend, probably the big match from this weekend is one that has just finished probably an hour ago, and that was Manchester United beating Chelsea by 4-0, their biggest Old Trafford victory, their biggest opening day Old Trafford victory for quite a long time. And it is a reality check for Frank Lampard, who played quite a few unfancied players, let's just say, under Maurizio Sarri that didn't play last year here, so as well. Also, Liverpool and Manchester City beat their opponents by hefty margins. Liverpool beating Norwich 4-1, Man City beating West Ham 5-1. Sheffield United getting their first point in their return to the Premier League. Burnley and Brighton having convincing wins. Crystal Palace and Everton in a stalemate. Arsenal beating a new-look Newcastle 1-0. Leicester and Wolves drawing, and also Tottenham Hotspur getting their first win of the season at home. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the transfers, and of course we'll have all the reaction to this weekend's Premier League games with that. So then, the Premier League season has got to a kick-off, and what is going on is, because of, all the transfer bans and everything that has been inflicted on Chelsea, the new manager, they, made a few changes to their side, and, everything seemed to be going well, I think, but no, it was a little bit underwhelming for Chelsea, really. Because what happened was that they lost 4-0 away from home. Quite a big defeat to really what a few years ago would have been a title rival. But of course, I don't think Manchester United are going to get a Premier League this year. I think, in fact, these are the two teams that are going to finish in the Europa League for me. I really don't see Arsenal slipping up. And I don't see Man United getting points and Chelsea getting points as well. But they've had to, obviously, they made a lot of changes. They started the likes of Kurt Zouma, Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount as well. So, obviously, Mason Mount, you can tell, worked with Frank Lampard at Derby County last year in the Championship. So they have a bit of a connection. But Tammy Abraham, yes, he might have helped Villa got promoted, but still, I mean, the last time he was in the Premier League, didn't really have a good spell at Swansea. So, I'm not having a go at Tammy Abraham. Good footballer, but is he top flight, top quality for Chelsea? That is very debatable. But Manchester United, they opened the scoring with a penalty for Marcus Rashford, and then 2 quick-fire goals in the middle of the second half with Martial and Rashford. And I think Rashford this season, if Manchester United are going to mount a proper challenge, probably for Europa League, 3rd place, I think, is the highest I see them finishing. I mean, I think they'll finish in the Europa League, but if they finish above that, I can only see them finishing as high as 3rd place. And really, this is the season where Marcus Rashford, he's not a teenager anymore. He's, probably one of the most experienced Manchester United players in that starting lineup. Speaking of experienced Manchester United players, inexperienced players rather, Daniel James, the £15 million summer signing from Swansea, got a goal. And Chelsea, even though they had the more shots, they did look a little bit, lacklustre in front of goal. They did not really test David De Gea. And, that shot that Tammy Abraham had off the post earlier in the game, I think that's what, if you convert those chances, that will do really well for your confidence. And I think Tammy Abraham, they just need a striker, Chelsea. And the reason, I really don't know why Alvaro Morata's going to Atletico Madrid, possibly for a permanent deal. They've got Giroud, who's aging, Tammy Abraham, who clearly, hasn't really got a lot of experience. They need a striker. And I know they're going to trust, the likes of Abraham, but you need a quality striker. Morata's loan spell at Juventus. He scored the 2 goals in the Champions League semi-final in 2015 to actually help them get to the final. So that's how you can tell Morata's quality. He's good enough for Real Madrid, and he's good enough for Juventus. 2 teams that are better than Chelsea. So why is he not good enough for Chelsea? I have no idea. But Frank Lampard, I'm not going to say Frank Lampard's going to be down the job centre by Christmas, because he probably isn't. But Chelsea, you need to stick with Frank Lampard, because after that transfer ban, ends, I think he could be the manager that makes the right signings. Christian Pulisic is a good signing. He made his debut today. Average, I would say. But, time will tell. Also today, we saw Arsenal kick off their Premier League season with an opening day away win against Newcastle. There were, again, protests outside the ground for Newcastle because of, obviously, Mike Ashley not spending a penny. But, obviously, people complain that Mike Ashley doesn't spend. I mean, they've broken their transfer record twice in the space of 7-8 months with Almiron and Joelinton, who played today, of course. And to be honest, everything I said about Newcastle, I think Bruce is going to keep them up. They did well against Arsenal. They had a few decent shots. I think Joelinton is a very good signing for Newcastle. It's a bit of a coup for them because, Joelinton were attracting bigger clubs, I think. But, 40 million is definitely a coup for Joelinton. But, I think they'll survive in the Premier League. But I don't know why everyone's writing off Newcastle. They'll still play in the Premier League. They'll still play Premier League football next season. But Arsenal doing what they do best, relying on Aubameyang to score the goals. But obviously they managed to give some minutes to the likes of Willock and Reece Nelson, who of course came back from his loan spell at Hoffenheim. I'm quite looking forward to seeing Reece Nelson play because of course he is probably one of the most hyped up teenagers in Arsenal right now. So that'll be quite a watch for me. But Arsenal, again, I can see them getting in the Champions League. But Newcastle, of course, they gave debuts to Joelinton, to Saint-Maximin, the new signing from Nice. They'll survive. I don't really care what anyone says. They'll survive in the Premier League. I think Bruce, he's got Hull City to an FA Cup final. So he got Hull. So he knows how to manage. So that's my opinion. Also today, VAR was in operation yesterday. I'll talk more about that later in the West Ham City game. But today as well in the Leicester Wolves game, because Wolves had a goal disallowed. Corner was swung in from João Moutinho, and then Dendoncker headed it onto Bolly's arm. Was it right to be disallowed? I think it is, because of course the arm is pretty much, deflected the ball into the net. We don't know where the ball would have gone if it just touched Dendoncker. So, of course, it's interfering with play. He hasn't really stuck his arm out wildly, but again, it's interfering with play, and it's not clear and obvious, but again, something that VAR should rule out. So that's the reason why. But Leicester and Wolves, I think 0-0 was a pretty right result because these are two teams that have the same ambition. Wolves obviously into the next round of the Europa League qualifiers. Leicester want to get into the Europa League this season. I think they will. I think Leicester will finish 7th. Wolves will just miss out because they will get into the group stage of the Europa League and it will have an effect on them. But Leicester had a few chances, so did Wolves. But I think compared to all the other games here, it's a bit like the Palace-Everton game, which I'm going to talk about now. It wasn't really, a spicy affair. But Palace, who did not start Zaha, I honestly thought they were going to get beaten by about 3 or 4 goals, because if there's ever an example of a one-man team, it's Crystal Palace. And I know people say, but Luka Milivojevic and Andros Townsend, occasionally chip in with some goals. And I buy your argument. But still, head and shoulders, Zaha is above, the rest of the players at that club. How he's not at a top 6 club, I will never know. And why Everton tried to sign him, I don't know, because what Zaha effectively is doing, swapping Palace for Everton, is swapping one mid-table side for another. And it's not really a step forward, is it? It might be a minute step forward, but it's not as in a big step forward as in he wanted to go to Arsenal. That's a step forward because you're guaranteed European football, whether it be Champions League or Europa League. But yeah, Everton, I think, will be pretty disappointed because first half, they were really good. To be honest, they should have scored in the first half, but Palace, held in, resisted. And I think this does show promising signs. It shows good signs for Roy Hodgson. Because I think, what this will be is we can deal, at least the first half, without Zaha. So, that's encouraging signs. Continuing on with yesterday, now I'm going to talk about the West Ham-Manchester City game. And West Ham rate the new kit, pretty decent kit, but didn't really help them because they were, deservedly thumped. They weren't deservedly thumped. They were beaten 5-0 by Manchester City. Raheem Sterling with a hat-trick. He scored in the Community Shield. I said then it was a confidence boost, and that's what, that's proved in the game yesterday. VAR was a big input in the game. Sterling, should he have had a goal? Well, it did say clear and obvious errors. It's not a clear and obvious error, but Sterling is offside by the tiniest of fractions. Honestly, he is so close to being level. But he scored a hat-trick as well. So, Manchester City are going to win the league. There's no question about it. West Ham, of course, I think pretty much most West Ham fans knew, you did beat the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United last season, and you did hold Liverpool. Fair enough last season. But obviously, it's a new dawn. So, obviously, with the signing of João Cancelo, Rodri, it's going to be a nigh on unbeatable Manchester City for me. I do not see them losing a lot of games. I think, on the basis, United and Liverpool will be the only two teams that cause them problems. But, West Ham, of course, comfortable top 10. I think outside the top 6, it'll be Leicester, Everton, Wolves and West Ham. Not particularly in that order. I think if you switch Wolves and Everton around, then that's the order I'd go for. But, Liverpool, of course, will be on their toes. They'll be in second place come the end of the season. 4-1 against Norwich. But when Norwich did score, Timu Pukki scored the goal for Norwich. When Norwich did score, it did show a tiny sign of Liverpool's defensive fragilities. And I'm not going in at Liverpool's defence because, my God, they've improved since the arrival of Virgil van Dijk, who scored in the Norwich game. But I think, to concede against a team like Norwich, who didn't really have a lot of shots in that game, it is going to be something they're going to have to work on. They need to, convincingly beat teams. And, they did convincingly beat Norwich, but, not as convincing as 5-0 because West Ham didn't really, pose a major threat to Manchester City. So, I think to beat a Man City, I think that's what Liverpool got to do. Just tighten up at the back. Another title contender, in the words of Martin Keown, Tottenham. They beat Aston Villa 3-1. Although I just need to say, when John McGinn did score inside the opening few minutes for Aston Villa, it did kind of make me worry because, remember, lads, this is the same team that were absolutely shocking in 15-16. Then again, it was a team that was coached by Remy Gard, but still, you couldn't have any complaints after that 15-16 season. It was literally BTEC Derby County 2008. So, but I think this Villa team will definitely do better than 2015-16. And they'll still go down though. They'll be 19th in the league, second to last. They'll pop up the same position that Fulham did because of the same reason. They overspend. They overspend way too much. Wesley didn't really have a big effect on the game. Who else? A lot of their signings. Tom Heaton made some good saves. I think he'll probably be, their signing of the season, Tom Heaton. If Aston Villa want to stay up and make me look like a complete fool for predicting them to go down, Tom Heaton will be so crucial outer favourite Burnley. So, yeah, Tom Heaton, you're going to have to prove yourself if you want your reputation to still be enhanced. But Tottenham, 2 goals from Harry Kane and a stunning strike from Ndombele, I have to say. He's going to be probably... I don't really want to say it because it might come back to bite me, but I think Ndombele will probably be one of the signings of the season. I think he'll help Tottenham. Tottenham will finish 3rd, I think, but he'll help Tottenham, stabilise themselves as a Champions League club. Because they got to the final, they lost, okay, but it's what can you learn from that? It's your first major European final for as long as I've been alive, at least. So, yeah. Burnley, they managed to beat Southampton, and Southampton, what happened to you in that second half? I mean, I know the conditions might have played a part in a couple of Burnley's goals, but Burnley, another team I predicted to go down. They'll probably be 18th. I put them 18th in my Premier League predictions before I actually released this podcast on YouTube. But yeah, I think Burnley, now that they've beaten Southampton, I think they'll still go down, but it's an off day for Southampton. And, if it's going to be the start of last season into this season, then it's going to be another tough season for Southampton. But to be honest, when you sell Mane and Van Dijk, 2 players that effectively carried your club to mid-table finishes under the likes of Ronald Koeman and Pochettino, it's going to be hard to replace them. I mean, Redmond is doing a phenomenal job of replacing Mane, definitely. I mean, anyone who saw him last season, the back end of last season, he was scoring goals, for fun. But it's the defensive side that needs to improve. And Burnley, they've only spent £12 million in this entire transfer window. The loan signing of Danny Drinkwater, who has not played football for a year, that's going to have a huge effect. Peacock Farrell from Leeds, I mean, he's a decent keeper for Leeds, young lad, but no Premier League experience. And of course, Eric Peters, who did provide 2 assists today, but I mean, still, it's not a hardly world-class signing. But yeah, I think Burnley, again, will have struggles, I think. And next to Bournemouth against Sheffield United, probably the game in the Premier League. It was probably the most end-to-end game, I'd say. But yeah, Sheffield United, Billy Sharp has scored well over 200 goals since 2005. Lads, that is a mental stat. Over 200 goals since 2005. That's 14 seasons. And he scored over 200 goals in his professional career. That is mad. I know Billy Sharp is getting a bit older. He's, I think, 33 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong. But still, I mean, look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's 36, 37. And he's still scoring goals for LA Galaxy. But Billy Sharp will be so key in keeping Sheffield United up. I think they will stay up, I do rate Chris Wilder. I put Sheffield United in 16th in my Premier League predictions, above Brighton in 17th. But yeah, I think Sheffield United will stay up. They have that team spirit, and it's that team spirit that got them the goal, because they didn't give up. And even though Bournemouth went 1-0 down to a goal from Chris Mepham, the defender, still, I think Sheffield United will have a good team. And I know, the signings of Ollie McBurney and Lys Mousset, people will say, oh, but Mousset didn't really do much for Bournemouth. And Ollie McBurney, yeah, he's had one 20-goal season in the Championship. It's still a good signing. McBurney will probably pitch in with a few goals, I think. But, yeah. What Chris Wilder needs to do, I think, in January, if his team is performing well, he cannot lose any of their players. He just can't. Because if he loses players, key players like... I'm not saying this will happen. If he loses key players like Billy Sharp, like, I don't know, Oliver Norwood, like Dean Henderson, they will struggle. So I think keeping their players will be so important, and adding to them, spending the right amount of money. I always say, I've always, had this this theory that promoted teams from the Championship should spend around 30 odd million, and that's what they're doing. That is why I don't think Norwich and Aston Villa will stay up. Aston Villa have overspent. They've spent over double that, and Norwich haven't even spent. They bought Sam Byram for I think 750k, loaned Josip Dermot, Ralph Farman, the Schalke goalkeeper, and Josip Dermot on a free. Lads, not even $1 million spent by Norwich. And I know people say, oh, they're just trying to keep their squad together that, won the promotion. Still, you need quality players to survive in this league. And that's why. But yeah, Sheffield United, I think, will stay up in this league. And the final result of the weekend is Watford 0, Brighton 3. Dream start for Graham Potter. Dream start. Brighton, I put them 17th, but the way they played today, they played like a mid-table side. They played like a West Ham, Leicester team. And I think teams will struggle with Brighton because if you remember this time last season, they were beating Manchester United on the second match day of the season. So, yeah, I think if Graham Potter can replicate that result, that type of result against big teams like United and Chelsea and Arsenal, he will get such recognition. It is unreal. But yeah, Brighton will survive, I think. But Watford, there's a reason I put Watford in 15th, and that's because Idrissa Sarr from Rennes is a good signing, but when you're signing Danny Welbeck, a man who swapped one bench for another in Manchester United to Arsenal, still, I think Watford, will probably be wildly inconsistent, I think. So, yeah, that's my reckoning. On to the EFL fixtures then. In the Championship, Leeds United drew 1-1 with Nottingham Forest. Leeds, who won their opening day match, they, I think, are probably going to be in the playoffs, as I said last episode. What else? Cardiff City beat Luton Town. And, of course, Cardiff, I put them as champions. So, yeah, I think that'll be a good step. This week, it was announced that Wayne Rooney was signed as a player coach, I think, for Derby County. He will have an effect, definitely. I think Derby will get into the playoffs. My four teams that are going to be in the playoffs: West Brom, Leeds, Derby, and Brentford. I do think Brentford are going to be in the playoffs because today they managed to win away from home against Middlesbrough, another team who realistically should be aiming for the playoffs, 1-0 without Neil Maupay, who scored for Brighton on Saturday. But Fulham as well, they beat Blackburn Rovers. So it's a good result for Fulham. Again, another team I think are going to finish. I think Fulham are going to finish in second place. So yeah, but Charlton Athletic, 2 games, 2 wins. What a return! This team was suffering from problems off the pitch with the owners a season or 2 ago, I think. But I think I actually thought Charlton were going to get, relegated from the Championship because I thought it would, take the toll. But obviously everything's sorted at the club now, and it can be resolved. Huddersfield, another team that went down from the Premier League, they drew against QPR. I don't think Huddersfield are going to come back up. I don't think they're even going to be in the playoffs. So, sorry Huddersfield fans. And yeah, really. League One, Bury Football Club, a team who got promotion from League Two, despite financial problems, really starting to take their toll now. I think in 14 days they need to sort everything out, otherwise they're going to be expelled from the Football League. I have never seen anything like it. A few teams have been expelled before. I think the earliest I can remember is Chester City. They were expelled from the conference because of the same reason, I believe. I'm not sure. But Bury, a League One side. This is third tier stuff, lads. But it's depressing, the situation there. I really can't believe it. But Lincoln City have kept up their 100% win rate, winning away at Rotherham. by 2-0. Again, Blackpool, they managed to beat Southend United. Blackpool, I think, will probably be in the playoffs this year. They had a good end to last season. They have Simon Grayson, who helped them get promotion to the Championship a decade or so back, so I think that'll be alright. Burton Albion, they managed to beat off Gillingham, so another team I think will be in the playoffs as well. And MK Dons, who were recently promoted from League 2, winning 1-0 at Shrewsbury. Into League 2 then, and Cheltenham Town emphatically beating Scunthorpe United, who were relegated from League 1 last season, remember, by 4-1. Macclesfield Town managed to beat Leyton Orient by 3-0. It was also Salford City's second game in the Football League, and they got a taste, like Leyton Orient, of life in the Football League by them being beaten by 2-0 from Crawley Town. And also it was Swindon Town 3, Carlisle United 2 in the big game here. Well, just before we go, opinions on the transfers. The transfer I think, the team that I have picked as had the best transfer window, definitely Leicester. I think Leicester have had the best transfer window. They've signed, who have they signed? Yuri Tielemans, who did bits for them last season on loan. They've signed Dennis Pratt, I have no idea how you pronounce his last name, who was wanted by Arsenal. And they've also signed Jose Perez for 30 million, who played today and, did decently. But, Leicester, I think, have had the best transfer window, definitely. Losing Harry Maguire, no problem. My transfer of the season, though, I don't know. It's a tough one because you've got Harry Maguire. He ought to be one of the transfers of the season. He's cost more than Virgil van Dijk, and he won't have, I think, this season the same effect that Virgil van Dijk had on that Liverpool defence. But it's going to be a tough one. I think I'm going to put probably a 5-player list, my transfers of the season, when I come to react to my review, react to these at the end of the season. Maguire, probably. I'd probably say Yuri Tielemans. I think he's going to help Leicester to Europe. What else? Well, this is hard. I think Nicolas Pepe will have an effect on Arsenal. So will Tanguy and Ndombele. And I think João Cancelo. Those are my 5 players that, come the end of the season, I think will be probably the transfers of the season. Player of the season? Manchester City are going to win the league, so it's probably going to be the same as well. If Bernardo Silva has the same season as he had last season, it's probably going to be between him, Raheem Sterling, Sergio Aguero, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk. Those are my 5 players. So yeah, that's really all the time we have for, really. Second episode of the season. If you did enjoy this second episode, drop a like, click that subscribe button if you're new, turn the notifications on as well if you can, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.